Hello everyone, welcome to this webinar. We'll just wait for 30 seconds as people are joining in. So welcome to this Interoperability in Action workshop series, which is coming back to you after a bit of a break. We finished 7 and this is the 8th one in the series. So this workshop is on social protection systems talking to interoperability systems, employment systems. This is Anita Mittal from GIZ, Component Lead for DCI, providing some context on what is DCI and what is this series. And in today's agenda, you will see in the next slide, we have, next slide please. Yeah, we have a deep dive into the interoperability of SP systems and employment systems. We will provide a conceptual framework, discuss in detail 2 use cases where we see a process flow of interoperability and then some action demonstrating live the interoperability of SP system with employment system. This will be followed by some perspectives, global as well as countries. I will bring that in the next slide, highlighting the people who will be presenting. So following this welcome remarks from myself, Wodsak from my team will be the moderator for this session today. Then we have Martina, who will set the framework for employment and SP systems interaction, and Thomas and Piotr, who are consultants and supporting DCI, will present the use cases and demonstrate live those 2 use cases. Then we have perspectives, a global perspective from Agastya, from World Bank, and then country perspectives from Elmira, from Azerbaijan, as well as Erkan from Turkey will present his country perspective, followed by a perspective from Dowell on the private sector solution provider. Then we will conclude the workshop. Moving on. So what is this DCI, which is organizing this event? Quite a few of our audience is already familiar with it, but to bring everybody on the same page, DCI is a joint effort by USP 2030 to support the digital transformation of social protection systems. This is funded by the European Union as well as the German government and implemented by 5 partners: GIZ, ILO, World Bank, Expertise France, and FIAT. So what is our approach to implementing this digital transformation? We have 4 broad pillars. First one is knowledge sharing, where we have events as well as knowledge products on the best practices, guides, and toolkits. Second pillar is what we are discussing today, which is development of interoperability standards. And we've already will share a bit more in the next slides on this. But the third pillar is country implementation support. We are providing direct implementation support to, in fact, 21 countries now with financial as well as technical support. And we also have a help desk which can provide on-demand technical support to few more countries beyond these 21. And the final, but not the least important aspect is capacity building and training. How do we implement this digital transformation? ILO, our partner, is leading this learning opportunities and also peer learning through other workshops on how we can implement digital transformation. This will also be provided as e-learning platform subsequently. Moving on, we have developed standards and released them in our Gitbook and GitHub, open standards available to anyone for use from 7 interfaces, which you see in green. Sorry, 5 interfaces released, 6th one, ID systems, is in the works, and payment systems is the one where we finished. So we finished 7 in action workshops, but 5 interfaces released, and 6th one is in progress. Today we are looking at the in-action workshop which will inform the development of standards for the employment systems. And the next one in queue is early warning system and payment systems. Moving on, next slide. So what is this interoperability in action workshops? So this is a workshop series, as I mentioned earlier, to demonstrate live and to inspire and motivate people on the benefit of interoperability of SP systems with other systems for effective and efficient delivery of social protection programs. In each of these workshops, we dive deep into one interoperability interface, as each of these interfaces follows different process, different data exchange elements, as well as APIs. So if you see each of these workshops have dealt with one topic, and today we are dealing with the employment interface. So what do we do in these workshops? We share an understanding of the business process workflow, the data objects that are changed, and a glimpse of the technical APIs that are required for interoperability. We create awareness on the benefits of interoperability through some illustrated use case and demonstrate it live. And we also hear from stakeholders and subject matters on this topic in this workshop series. So next slide shows you links to our past recordings, which are available on the spdci.org DCI website, where you can watch on a topic that is of interest to you. With this, I then invite my colleague Wanza to take over the moderation for this workshop. Over to you, Wanza.
Thanks, Anita, and welcome again, everyone. Thank you for joining the workshop. Like Anita mentioned, my name is Wanza Modani. I work with the Digital Convergence Initiative with GIZ supporting the Standard Development Workstream. And just a reminder, if you have any questions, please post them in the Q&A, then we will answer them during the discussion session. Next slide, please. So our first speaker today is Martina, who will be talking about a background study on the interoperability of employment systems and social protection system based on a study she conducted. Martina is a social protection policy expert with over 13 years of experience advising governments, international organizations, social partners, and NGO. And she has collaborated with institutions such as ILO, GIZ, and BMZ, as well as a range of other bilateral and multilateral development partners. So I'll welcome Martina to present the first session. Over to you, Martina.
Okay, thanks, Wanza. I hope everyone can hear me. And thanks everyone for joining today's webinar. As Wanza said, I'm currently working on a background study on linking social protection and public employment services through systems interoperability. The study is commissioned by the International Labour Organization under the broader umbrella of the Digital Convergence Initiative. And the aim of the study is to underpin the standards that are currently being developed by the DCI on linking social protection and employment information systems. Before I start my presentation, I think it is important to say that the study does not only focus on digital interoperability, but also looks more broadly into institutional arrangements, legal frameworks, and process architectures that enable collaboration between social protection and employment administrations. And I also wanted to say again that the study that I'm conducting is mostly focusing on public employment services in the employment system. So I might have a certain bias in my presentation also towards public employment services, whereas the overall webinar is on employment systems in general. In today's presentation, so I already had a presentation in a Talking Interoperability webinar in October, where I presented the basics of the study. And in today's presentation, I would like to focus basically on the details of relevant information systems and the specific use cases for digital interoperability between the two policy areas. So the slide that you are seeing at the moment already shows that there is a natural connection between the two policy fields, basically through the framework of labor market services that is used in many countries to define employment services, labor market services. So I'm starting with a general overview before I'm going into the details of systems interoperability. Basically, in most of the countries, we have the distinction between active labor market services and so-called passive services that provide income support through social protection. And here we already see this, let's say, natural linkage between the two areas. When you look at the very left-hand side of this slide, you see a range of active labor market programs, which include training and skills development, wage subsidies for specifically vulnerable groups, in entrepreneurship promotion or support to self-employment, or also public employment programs. So these are all active labor market programs that you can find in many country contexts and in many country case studies. In the middle, you also see one specific active labor market program that is provided in many, not in all countries, which is public employment services. Public employment services usually provide career counseling and guidance. They also provide job search support. And very importantly, they also provide and also refer to other active labor market programs, which you see on the very left-hand side. And they also, in some cases, administer, provide, and refer to so-called passive services that are provided through social protection programs, which you see on the very right-hand side of this slide. So these income support programs that are mostly provided to job seekers or to people transitioning from one job to another include, for example, unemployment insurance, unemployment assistance, specific job search allowances, early retirement, or any other forms of cash assistance. So let's move to the next slide, please. So this was the general framework. Now I'm going a little bit more into detail into the information systems. And this slide shows an overview of common social protection information systems that you find in many countries, maybe not as detailed as on this graph, but at least some elements you find in most of the countries across the world already. The graph is from a recent World Bank publication, and it very beautifully shows the range of different management information systems that nowadays underpin social protection schemes and systems, and that are also more and more interconnected digitally. This includes social registries, integrated beneficiary registries, also individual program management information systems, program inventories, or case management information systems, just to mention a few. There are more on this slide. And I think this has been discussed in various let's say, webinars already in this series. I'm not going to go too much into detail here. I would directly want to move to the next slide, please. So this slide shows or provides an overview of employment information systems. And in contrast to social protection, where information systems are quite well documented and increasingly also systematized, as we have seen in the last slide, there is no standardized framework for employment information systems at the moment, but the analysis of the literature and the country cases shows that there are various distinct systems that can be distinguished, and these are shown on this slide. So first of all, there are job seeker registration systems that store personal and professional data, sometimes also with profiling tools to identify the needs of job seekers and to support them in finding employment. Secondly, there are public vacancy databases where employers can post vacancies, and job seekers and also the government can access these job vacancies. Third, there are job matching systems that are basically combining the functions of the first and the second system that I'm presenting. So it connects job seekers and employers by aligning skills and vacancies. And in more and more cases here, we also see that artificial intelligence is used for these matching purposes. And number 4, we also have digital case management systems that track a job seeker's journey across services, counseling, benefits, and outcomes. So it's often used by caseworkers, by public employment service counselors to really support job seekers on a case-by-case basis. Number 5, this I added here for this specific webinar. I called it employee or also employer databases. So in some countries, you find specific employer and employee databases or registers, mostly, of course, for formal employees and employers. But in most of the countries, this function is often also taken by social insurance information systems. So instead of having a separate system in many countries, the social insurance information system provides exactly this information about who is employed, what are the wages, and so on to track these things. And last but not least, we also have broader labor market information systems that are provided, that provide more aggregated labor market data to guide evidence-based policy and public employment service planning. I'm going to skip the next 2 slides so we can go directly to the next slide, please. Yeah. So I only have 2 minutes left, and I just wanted to take the chance to give you a comprehensive overview of potential use cases for interoperability between these social protection and employment information systems. And this is basically based on an analysis of around 20 country cases for the study, and 3 deep dives into specific country cases with advanced interoperability between these systems. This is particularly Chile, Korea, and Turkey. And I have identified in total around 8 use cases, and I distinguish between social protection initiated collaboration and employment initiated collaboration. On this slide, you see 5 use cases that are usually initiated by social protection administrations. The first one is to help beneficiaries find employment. In this case, social protection institutions identify working age beneficiaries and connect them to public employment services or other active labor market programs. Here, collaboration can range from simple referrals to automated and data-driven case management or even integrated case management. The second use case here is to support youth in school-to-work transitions. So social assistance agencies can identify youth from low-income households and link them directly to public employment services and TVET programs. The third use case is to monitor compliance with activation measures, where benefits depend on job-seeking efforts or participation in active labor market programs. Employment administrations may share data to verify this attendance and to detect non-compliance and adjust beneficiaries' benefits accordingly. The fourth is employment status verification. In this case, social assistance agencies validate beneficiaries' employment income status. And the fifth use case here is to directly make use of employment information from the various information systems to feed into social protection information systems, such as social registry for eligibility determination and beneficiary registries to see who is getting what, when, and where, so to support their specific functions. Let's move to the next slide, and this is also the last slide. So this provides an overview of potential use cases for interoperability that is initiated by employment administrations. Here I identified in total 3 use cases. The first one is to help job seekers access social protection, specifically social unemployment insurance or social assistance. Here, public employment services identify vulnerable job seekers who may qualify for social assistance and guide them or refers them to the specific benefits. It's very similar to the first use case in my previous slide, and it's also possible to have mutual referral systems, so from public employment services to social protection and the other way around. The second use case is to provide employment subsidies for the target group or beneficiaries of social protection schemes. So here, wage subsidies might specifically be targeted to social assistance or unemployment insurance beneficiaries or low-income individuals. And this would require verification of beneficiary and poverty status through social registries or beneficiary registries. And the third use case is to monitor employer compliance with social insurance. So especially when firms receive subsidies or other active labor market or benefit from other active labor market programs, employment administrations might collaborate with social insurance agencies to verify if these workers also register and contribute on a regular basis to social insurance schemes on behalf of their workers. And thereby, the aim is to reduce informality and protect workers' rights. So this is an overview of the use cases I identified through the analysis of these country cases. There might be more. This is what I came across in my research. And now I'm handing back to Wanza, and I'm looking forward to the rest of the presentations. Thank you.
Thank you, Martina, for providing the overview of your study. And the full report will be published on the DCI website once finalized, so you can get more details of the report there. And for the questions, we'll get back to the questions in the discussion session. So if you have additional questions for Martina, please post in the Q&A session. Then our next session today is the use case demonstration. So from the list that Martina has given an overview on, we're going to look into 2 specific use cases, the details, and this will be presented by Thomas and Piotr. So just a quick introduction. Thomas has over 10 years experience in digital social protection and humanitarian assistance with extensive work with government stakeholders designing digital strategies in multiple countries. And for the last 4 years, he has expertise in data systems and interoperability and data-driven decision making. So he'll be leading the demonstration today of the 2 use cases. And then we have Piotr, who is an experienced software developer with Solvelo. He has extensive knowledge not only in building systems integration, but also drafting complete integration schemas. And he's currently serving as a solution architect. So with this, I'm going to invite Thomas to present the 2 detailed use cases. Over to you, Thomas.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Wanza. And it's a pleasure to be here today and being able to present these use case demonstrations, which are building on the great work that Martina has done and the wider DCI team has done. If we can go to the next slide. So to guide today's demonstration, we're working with 2 example use cases. These are not specific country programs, but they're based on common real-world practices observed in various countries and documented by Martina. We're using them simply to illustrate the logic of interoperability and how data can flow securely between systems. The first is Maria's journey, as we referred, which is a referral from social protection to employment services. And the second is Joseph's journey, the reverse direction from employment services to social protection. Together, these 2 use cases allow us to demonstrate the complete interoperability cycle in both directions, how data is verified, consented, transmitted, and acknowledged across the systems. And we'll start with flow 1 for social protection to employment referral, and then return to the slides before moving to flow 2. So if we can move to the next slide, please. Now, before we get to the actual demo, I'm just going to give a little bit of information about the two example programs, fictional programs, examples to make the data flow easier to understand. These simplified scenarios are based on common real-world program types identified through the research, but they're here only to illustrate the interoperability logic. So on the left is an example social protection program, a widow support program managed through an SPMIS. Its primary role is to provide short-term income support. For beneficiaries of working age, it also has a secondary pathway linking them to employment services. And on the right is an example employment services program, providing job matching, counseling, and training. Crucially, it can receive referrals from the social protection system so that the beneficiaries who can work get activation support. Who can get work to pay. The demo doesn't really show any country systems. It simply illustrates the logic about how these two types of programs can interact. If you go to the next slide, please. And the visual here shows the systems involved in our example scenario. Again, these are illustrative. They mirror real-world system types, but everything here is purpose-built for the demonstration. So at the center or the core part of this program for the widow support program would be the SPMIS, which manages registration, eligibility, enrollment, and around it, referrals. And around it are the systems that exchange data, the ID systems for identity authentication, the CRVS for confirming the widowhood, for spouse death certificates, the social registry for household and socioeconomic data, and of course the employment services systems, which receives referrals and supports activations. So with that context, we're now ready to talk through the first use case. So I'm going to talk through the process flow, and then we'll go to the demo. So if we can go to the next slide, please. Brilliant. All right, so let's see this in action. So to begin with, we start with Maria Lopez as an example, who is applying for the widow support program, and in this case is wanting to be enrolled in the SBS system. If we could click through the slide, please. So the first step which will need to be done is to automate verification, is to check her identity. So she will be added in, her ID number will be added into the system, and it will query the country's ID system to validate the identity and refer to the confirmed personal details. And this makes sure we're working with a verified personal record before moving forward. And then next step. Now the system checks widowhood status by querying the civil registry and vital statistics systems. It would do this using the spouse's ID system to confirm that the spouse is officially recorded as deceased, and this forms part of the eligibility determination. And then the next step. The next step, the system then retrieves social economic information directly from the social registry on the household composition, income level, and poverty score. And these data points confirm whether Maria meets the income eligibility criteria for the widow support program. And then next step, please. And then once all these eligibility checks are passed, Maria is successfully enrolled in the widow support program. But because she is of working age and not currently employed, and because she gave her consent to do so, the SP system and the team automatically prepares and sends a referral to the employment services system. And this is transmitted through the API or different interoperability protocol to the employment system. Next step, please. And at this point, the caseworker receives confirmation of from the social protection side that has been enrolled in the program and has been passed on. So if we can get to the next slide, I think. There we go. So as I said, we're now going to show the actual demo, and Pietro is going to take this through to show the different steps in a bit more detail and how this actually works. So Pietro, hopefully you'll be able to share your screen now. Brilliant. So on the screen here, you can see which Pietro is sharing. We have two actions. On the left-hand side, you can see we have a mocked up social protection MIS system. And on the right-hand side, we have the employment services system created. Now, I want you to imagine that you are in the place of the social protection worker who has now got Maria Lopez in front of her. They're having a meeting, and Maria is looking to be enrolled in the program. So first of all, her personal details are entered into the system: her name, her national ID number, her address, her phone number, date of birth, and all the different contexts. And this forms the basis for the downstream verification that will take place. Brilliant. And there's, yes, and going through. And now the officer is also recording the spousal's details to be validated for the CRVS to confirm the widowhood using official civil registration data. And then Maria would be asked by the officer to confirm is she currently working? Because that is a thing that will flag for the next step on into the process. So in this case, she is not working, so the box is not ticked. And so the officer will then go to save the record. And as the record is saved, as you can see, it is now the system automatically verifies her national ID through the country's ID system. And there we see the ID has been confirmed. Maria's application is now ready for the eligibility checks. So Maria will still be there, but the officer will now go to the next part in the system. They've now created a profile, and they will now go and verify the details. So you click here. We're now looking to query. So we're going to click Run Verification. And as you can see here, all the eligibility checks are processing through. It's querying the different databases, sending information to and from, receiving that. And as we say here, the system is now confirming that Maria qualifies for support. It's also flagging that Maria is eligible based on her criteria and non-working status for referral to the employment services. And so here it's prompting the officer to request from Maria consent to share her data to this other government department. So in this case, Maria has said yes, and consent is granted. This makes sure that the consent is logged with lawful basis, timestamped, and official ID, giving us a full audit trail. And this is a critical step to ensure that data is legal interoperability is maintained as well as data interoperability, and there's a lawful basis. So at this point, Maria is now enrolled as a beneficiary on the Widow Support Program, and she's linked to the Integrated Beneficiary Registry, and the case is ready for the referral stage. So now we can move from enrollment to referral and activation. So again, the caseworker will open up a list of work-capable beneficiaries, and Maria will appear because she is of working age and unemployed. We obviously have a consent already in file, and so the caseworker can seal this detail, the consent is recorded, and the caseworker sends the referral. And as is happening, the SPMIS is now automatically bundling the standard referral payload and transmitting it securely to the employment service systems using the standard DCI standards for interoperability that have been created. Now, as you can see on the right-hand side, we immediately receive confirmation that the employment system has received the referral, and this on the left-hand side, and this in the SPMIS, and this prevents duplicated and repeated referrals by the ESS giving that reply back to it. Now, to complete the journey, we switch to the employment services system, where the employment officer sees the new referral. They've come in the next day, it is in the morning, and they can see that a person has been referred into their inbox. Opening the referral displays all the relevant details, the identity, the consent status, and her working flag status. So the employment officer has everything needed to follow up. And in this case, they're going to assign a case manager to engage and follow up with Maria. And when they do that, they click Save. And the system now marks the case as active. And finally, to close the loop, the employment system sends a confirmation message back to the social protection system, both ensuring that both systems are holding up-to-date records, mirroring themselves, and are able to have a clear understanding. And now, finally, what we can do is also go to the logs. And here we can see the technical logs of actually the messages that have been sent at each step of the process, between the different systems. And again, that's important for us to have an audit log, a clear verification, and a clear process of how Maria was supported when and how it moved through the system. So this completes Maria's journey. We've seen how identity, civil registration, social registry, and employment services all connect through the DCI interoperability framework, enabling a lawful, secure, and traceable referral to social protection and to employment services. So if we head back to the main slide, I'm now going to hand back to Anita, who's going to briefly show how all these systems involved in the demo have been supported through the DCI's work. Anita, if I can hand back to you now.
Yeah, thanks, Thomas and Walter, for this description of the use case, as well as demonstrating live in action. Very impressive. So what we saw in this demonstration, that there was this SPMIS video program, which was talking to the ID system, to the CRVA system, social registry, as well as employment service system. And each of these interactions had their own business process flow, data objects exchanged, and API calls and responses. So DCI has already studied these interfaces through the in-action workshops, constituted standards committees, and built consensus on the standards for CRVS and social registry, and the ID is almost final stage, undergoing public review. So if you want to have a look and provide feedback, you're welcome to do so. And what we are initiating through this workshop is an understanding of this interoperability process, data, and APIs. And then we will constitute a committee, which is kicking off 2 days from now, which is 20th, which will discuss, debate, review, and draft these standards. So the 3 standards are almost available. The 4th one in this figure will be available in about 4 or 5 months. So now we move on to the second use case. Back to you, Thomas, for the second use case.
Thank you so much, Anita. So now, as I said, we move on to the second use case. Again, these are illustrative programs based loosely on real-world designs, but here we are using them to demonstrate the interoperability logic. On the left, we have the Employment Services Program, which works with job seekers. In this example, it provides job matching, counseling, and skills training, and it also identifies individuals who remain unemployed or who may have become income vulnerable over time. Importantly, employment counselors can refer candidates into the social protection or social assistance project system when they suspect that someone may require temporary income support. So this direction is the reverse of the previous use case. And on the right, we have a illustrative basic income support program. Again, this is just a example program for the demo, but it reflects the structure of a real-world program. Its purpose is to provide short-term income support for people who have no active earnings or below a poverty line criteria. And eligibility is verified using national ID, social registry data, and the integrated beneficiary registry, but also can receive referrals from other programs. And this flow shows how the 2 systems can work together so that job seekers with financial vulnerability can be quickly connected to temporary income support while still maintaining active linkages back to employment for reintegration once work resumes. So if you go to the next slide. And again, it's very similar systems that are in place here as in the previous slide. Again, this is for enabling the basic needs support program. And so we need the national ID system for ID authentication, a social registry for household composition and social economic data, an IBR, which prevents duplication by checking when someone is already receiving a benefit, and obviously the employment services system, and the social protection MIS that's managing on the social assistance side, the entire ecosystem. Now, of course, just a note, for these use cases, you don't necessarily need all of these systems to be in place, but for this illustrative example, we're including all of them to show the different the process flows. So if we can go to the next slide. Brilliant. So in this case, we're starting with Joseph, a registered job seeker. After several months of unemployment, his counsellor is meeting with him and identifies that he may qualify for temporary income support. Now, before any data is shared, verbal consent is recorded, so Joseph explicitly authorizes the employment system to share his information with the social protection systems. This consent is logs and forms the lawful basis of the referral. Once the consent is recorded, the Employment Services System sends a structured referral to the Social Protection MIS. This is again using ideally DCI referral payload or any other structured data, standardized data package, and is transmitted securely through an interoperability layer. We can go to next part one. There you go, it's going on. Now, and the next click on as well, will show that when the SPS is now once the data is received by the SPSS, it automatically checks its identity, querying the country's ID system to make sure that the national ID or unique identifier that's being passed is valid and can be included in the SP system. Once that is done, the SP system then checks the social registry to determine whether or not the socioeconomic data is PMT or other scoring validates that they would be eligible for inclusion in the program. Now, in some countries that may not be required. The referral pathway itself may be enough for eligibility criteria, but here we are imagining that they have a second step. So if you can move the slide on to show that step, please. There you go. So again, now it is retrieved a poverty score, and because once eligibility is confirmed, Joseph is enrolled into the basic income support program. At this point, a notification is automatically sent back to the employment system to confirm that the referral has been received and acted upon. Importantly, no benefits amounts or sensitive details are shared. Only the minimum required confirmation data is shared back to the employment system's social status. You can click through again. Brilliant. And one more time. And there we go. And then the next slide, please. Brilliant. And now if Pietro, if you would be able to share your screen again.
I'm sorry to interrupt. So we only have 2 minutes left. So if you can quickly go through the next. Yes, please.
Yes, of course. So again, we'll go through this as quickly as we can. We again, on the right-hand side, we see the ESSS system. We can see that, again, Joseph has been unemployed. The employment worker is logging in and is viewing the accounts and is seeing that this person is still recorded as unemployed, has been unemployed for 8 months, and is recording here the number of applications and interviews that he has done. They're requesting that again, he asks for verbal consent, and which is given and is recorded in the system. So with consent recorded, the system enables the create referral to social protection assistants and is now enabling a sending of a referral. So we will now send this referral through to the social protection systems. And we can see that the social protection referral has been sent. And we can see that the interoperability layer has transmitted this referral across. Now, the social protection MIS system automatically acknowledges receipt, and this again prevents duplicate submissions and confirms the referral has been successfully delivered. And so the ESS dashboard updates to show that the referral has been acknowledged and is now awaiting confirmation from social protection. So now let's move over to the social protection MIS. And again, this would likely be a Monday morning. A staff member is coming in, logs in and sees a referral inbox that is there. So they go to click into it to do refer eligibility, and they check the eligibility. Again, they do this by querying the existing systems. As you can see here, it's checking household data, it's verifying income level, it's making sure that it hasn't already been enrolled in this program by checking the IBR. And yes, it now is eligibility has been approved, and they're able to click approved enrollment in the system. Now, again, crucially, the employment system is not told any benefit details. All it is doing is being sent back to the system that it is now being this person is now being enrolled in the program. So Joseph is now officially enrolled in the Basic Income Support Program. And after enrollment, Joseph now appears in the SPS MIS as a list of active beneficiaries linked to the employment systems, and that he is still actively searching for work. Now, 2 weeks later, or many months later, Joseph is recorded in the ESSS that he has actually got employment. He has finally managed to come back and has received, he's got a job. So the employment services staff now mark him as employed. Brilliant. This information will now be transmitted automatically to the social protections information system. And here it is noting that he is no longer. He's been exited from being a registered job seeker. He's now in an employed status. Now, crucially, this doesn't necessarily mean he would be excluded or removed from the SPS program or from the basic needs support program. It would more be likely that he would be flagged for referral or review of his case to see if being in employment, he is going to exit out of the income threshold or the poverty threshold that gives him in. But by doing this, it enables this ongoing two-way loop, enables the systems to be maintained and make sure that the data that is recorded in each system is mirrored and is being kept up to date. And again, we can look at the technical logs for both systems. And we can see that each time a data process is taking place, there's a recorded information exchange, and that information is again auditable and clear why this happened, when it happened, and who is involved in the process. So I apologize for going slightly over time, and I'll hand it back to Anita for the next slide.
Thanks, Thomas and Poiter. So moving on to the next slide, we just want to reiterate that in this use case also we have the SP system talking to employment, ID, IBR, and social registry. So there's a new interface which we are showing, which is the IBR. So and all these standards, as per the legend, have already been notified, and the search and notify for the employment systems. That is the work we will kick off on 20th. So do look out for updates from DCI on this work progress. Back to you, Wanza.
Thank you, Anita and Thomas and Piotr for the presentations. And these slides will be available on the DCI website and the recording too. And it will also be shared with all the attendants if you want to look at the processes in detail. So next slide, please. So we'll quickly move to the next presenter today. So the next presentation will be from Agastya, who will be giving global perspectives based on World Bank research on the same topic of interoperability between employment and social protection systems. And just a quick overview of Agastya. He's a social protection consultant at the World Bank. His work is focusing on strengthening and scaling social protection delivery systems through knowledge sharing, analytical work, and technical assistance. And he's been involved in integrating delivery systems across social protection and labor market programs with the World Bank, as well as the adoption of AI for social protection. With that short introduction, I'll hand over to you, Agastya.
Thank you, Vansa. And good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. I hope I'm audible. So I gave a short presentation today about the World Bank's preliminary research on and thinking on the integration of social protection and labor market systems. So over the past 2 decades, we've seen increasing investments in strengthening social protection delivery systems as well as labor market systems, but these have often been done in silos. So now there is an opportunity to better link and provide more inclusive services by connecting social assistance and labor market programs, both to support social assistance beneficiaries as well as other vulnerable non-beneficiaries as well, with labor market services to enhance their capabilities and help them access opportunities. So through a review of several country cases, we've noted that countries have already operationalized integration in different forms. So the motivation for this initiative was to see what we can learn from them and how we can use and share these lessons with other countries to help replicate and scale. Next slide, please. So the idea behind the integration of social assistance and labor market program systems is that work-able beneficiaries or other vulnerable non-beneficiaries as well, receiving different kinds of support, cash benefits, employment services, uh, other ALMPs will be better equipped to transition out of poverty through improved capability and access to opportunity. And with such integration, both institutions as well as beneficiaries can benefit from improved access to information, simplified procedures, as well as improved institutional coordination mechanisms. Next slide, please. So I won't go through this in too much detail, given that we've seen the workflows in the previous presentations, but the idea is we have the delivery chain framework comprising the assess phase, enroll phase, provide and manage phases, and countries have operationalized integration in different models to support this journey through different institutional mechanisms, different digital systems, as well as different procedural mechanisms as well. For referrals, for matching, for eligibility checks, and all the other use cases that Martina had mentioned earlier in her presentation. Next slide, please. So, based on a review of several country cases, we observe a non-linear typology, which is that it's not sequential, or it's not an evolution mechanism, but these are different models based on the availability of the programs, the institutions, and systems in the country. So on the left side, you see one-stop shops, which are typically more common in high-income countries, where you have a single entry point for multiple services supported by a case management approach. For example, in the UK, in Chile, Korea, and so on. In the middle, you have interoperable digital systems, which we've seen the use cases and demonstrations, just now with from Thomas, where you have the social registry linking with, a labor market program MIS or with the public employment services, depending on how the systems and institutions are structured in the country. As well as you can also have similar interfaces between the social protection MIS as well as the labor market program MIS or public employment services. So the way this works, the use cases look like are the social registry, which has a broader, not just social assistance beneficiaries, but a broader pool of poor and vulnerable individuals and households. That data can be used to refer, workable people to, the public employment services or to specific labor market programs. And if there is no social registry, or it's at a very nascent stage, you could also have the social protection MIS for, let's say, the largest, cash transfer program or other programs being linked with labor market systems to support again these referrals and eligibility checks and so on. And on the right side, you have a different model, which is a programmatic integration, where this is typically involves cash plus or economic inclusion programs that have both social assistance and employment support services, as different components within the same program. For example, in Zambia, in Burundi, and so on. Next slide, please. So each of these models have different, institutional mechanisms, and rather the specifics of the institutional mechanisms vary, but in general, you do need agreements between the participating institutions, which cover the roles and responsibilities for collecting any, data, for sharing data, managing data protection and privacy, staffing, financing, and so on, as well as agreement on procedures for the various use cases that we've seen so far. Next slide, please. So looking at the models in a little bit more detail, on the one-stop shops, these are progressive integration mechanism. They can gradually be implemented in stages where you start with, simple information desks. You have co-located services or, then transition to fully integrated case management. And there is typically one agency or organization that is responsible for like the front end service delivery as well as coordination between all the participating agencies which are delivering services through this one-stop shop mechanism. And this applies both for horizontal coordination across institutions as well as vertical coordination between different levels of government. And this needs effective budget management mechanisms, effective staffing arrangements, roles, clear definition of roles and responsibilities, as well as digital mechanisms to support these one-stop shops. Next slide, please. The second model is the social registry as a gateway, where the social registry, which has a large pool of household socioeconomic information, can be used to support referrals to the public employment services or specific labor market programs. And this requires a clear definition of the criteria for referrals, uh, the responsibilities for data collection, and these should be agreed mutually by the participating institutions, factoring in institutional capacity as well as the program capacity. Now, the social registry will have certain information that can be used to identify, beneficiaries who could be referred, but there may also be a case where additional information may be needed, for assessment at the labor market program side. And this requires institutional coordination to figure these out and manage this integration. And this needs interoperability between the social registry and program systems. But we've seen cases in Mauritania and Senegal, for example, where the social registry data was used for referrals, but without the interoperability being fully established. Next slide, please. And in this case, in the programmatic integration case, you have again a common looking at the case of Zambia, where you have the cash transfer program as well as economic inclusion components. There is a single IT system, the Core MIS, which was originally developed for the social assistance side, but is enhanced for the other components as well. And there is beneficiary lists are cross-referenced and beneficiary data is updated across these program components. Next slide, please. So in terms of how countries should think about adopting or operationalizing this integration, you have several factors which need to be taken into account, which include, the program structure, front office readiness, whether you have certain digital systems, how mature they are, the fiscal space, institutional coordination mechanisms, as well as the data and processes in place. Next slide, please. So in terms of choosing a suitable model, we've put this, typology together with looking at three factors: the digital maturity, program fragmentation, as well as institutional coordination. So countries can adopt suitable models based on, their specific context, but they can also evolve and transition to other modalities based on how things are going. So for countries with high digital maturity, good institutional coordination and low program fragmentation, a one-stop shop model could be appropriate. In conversely, if, program fragmentation is high, the social registry can act as a gateway to support multiple programs on the labor market side. And in cases social registry is not mature or not available, the SPMIS can, do a similar function as well. So, like I said, this is a non-linear trajectory, and countries can transition, based on their specific context, and of course, the starting point, matters as well. So, this brings me to my last slide. So a few key takeaways, the design of integration has to be client-centered. And this is particularly relevant in the context of the social assistance side where, you have certain individuals or vulnerable people who are further away from the labor market, who need more training, more intensive levels of support. And there are some who are more work ready. So this requires some profiling, segmentation to identify and provide support accordingly. And then integration works best with coherence across, the policy, program, and delivery systems, and when processes, institutional and digital systems work in tandem. So thank you for this, and I'll hand it back to Vanza.
Thank you, Agastya, for your presentation. If you have any questions for Agastya, please post them in the Q&A box, and we will review them at the discussion session. Next slide, please. So we are going to move on to the next session. So this session will be getting inputs from two countries. So the first country will be Azerbaijan. So Elmira will talk about the experience in Azerbaijan linking social protection systems and employment systems. So just a quick introduction on Elmira. Elmira is a specialist whose work centers on digital transformation and introduction of innovative approaches to modernization. With experience in both government and international projects, she concentrates on practical strategies that apply to strengthening social protection systems. So with that, I'll hand over to Elmira to share the experiences from Azerbaijan.
Thank you, Wanza. I would like to thank you for the opportunity to be a part of this event, and I will share my presentation. In my today's presentation, I will just elaborate Azerbaijan case on enhancing social protection and employment synergies. Briefly about the Ministry of Labor and the Social Protection of Population of the Republic of Azerbaijan. Actually, the ministry provides different directions in social field, including labor and employment systems, social payments and insurance, disability and rehabilitation services, as well as other services, including fostering and adoption. And at the backbone of these services stands centralized electronic information system, which is abbreviated as CIS. It's a robust platform designed to automate the collection, creation, storage, and retrieval of information on labor relations, employment issues, social protection, social security, and all other ministry-related dimensions. And CIS consists of 18 subsystems and 4 registries, and it functions on the basis of one window principle. CIS also just all the systems within CIS, they are interconnected and interoperable. So as one of the main components, as one of the main part of the labor of the CIS is the labor and employment subsystem, which is a one-stop shop and unifies all labor and employment services ranging from job searching, recruitment to personal records. And I'd like to mention the fact that just recently in 2024 as approved by the decree of the President of the Republic of Azerbaijan. The employment contracts are signed online, so it's also one of the it also includes one of the innovative functionalities within the labor and employment subsystem. Data exchange, this slide mainly depicts just interoperability, not just only internal systems, but also external systems. So when the citizens would like to apply to the ministry, they can do it via multiple channels, including traditional and digital ones. So digital ones, I like to note that the digital ones are digital ones surpasses the ones that's done traditionally. So when citizens, including unemployed, job seekers, employed, and employers, would want to get access to the information systems of the ministry, they should sign up via digital login. Digital login is a single entry point countrywide, and it consists of several authentication methods, such as personal identification number, face ID recognition, mobile ID, electronic signature, USB token. Once the citizens has registered, they can get access to the information system of the ministry and also benefit the services provided by them. While delivering services to citizens, in order to receive, in order to obtain information about them from the original source, it was built integration between the centralized electronic information system and information systems of over 80 public entities, including Ministry of Justice, Ministry of Internal Affairs, State Tax Service, Ministry of Science and Education, etc., and private institutions, including banks, insurance providers, utility companies. Also, this integration is possible via digital bridge, which refers to national data exchange system within the country. In this slide, I'll give brief information about proactive social payments mechanism. So what does it stand for? Proactive social payments mechanism is a mechanism which proactively identifying, recognizing, and fulfilling the citizens' rights without their explicit requests. So it means that the process is fully automated and there's no human intervention in this process. How the system works, how the mechanism works. First of all, when the person is eligible for certain amounts of certain kinds of social payments, the data about the person is retrieved through a digital bridge, and with the integration just of the appropriate public institution. So the received data is cross-checked in the second stage, and the third stage is related with the decision making, whether the person is eligible for the social payment or not. And last two steps are related with informative just character. So in the first stage, banks are informed about the amount of the social payments, and lastly, citizens receives SMS with the information how and where they can get access to their bank account. And as it's visible from the slide, the whole process takes only a couple of hours. And on the other side of the slide, you can see the assignment, the number of proactive assignments in different years. And I gave information in my previous slide about the assignment process of the social payments and social benefits as well. So this slide, in my previous slides, I talked about the back-end components of the of the systems. Now I will introduce you a frontline interface, which is presented to citizens citizens. And at the front line, it's e-social portal. It delivers the services as a front line for citizens. So e-social also provides access as a single entry point for different services in social field, including employment services, labor relations services, as well as disability services, also child and family welfare programs, and all other digital services. E-social also suggests some innovative services and technologies, which include smart cards for vulnerable groups, pension capital monitoring, pension and wage calculators. And for technologies, we can give an example: a single sign-on, big data, open data. I'd like to mention that through e-social, citizens experience full intersection of employment and social protection systems as simplified, user-friendly, and accessible from anywhere. I'll just wrap up my presentation here. Lastly, I'd like to mention that Azerbaijan's experience shows that this intersection is the future of social policy. So it's proactive, connected, and human-centered. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Almira, for your presentation and sharing your experiences in Azerbaijan. If you have any questions for Almira, please post them in the Q&A and we'll hand them over to her during the discussion session. So in the next session, we'll get inputs from Turkey. They've also implemented the integration between social protection systems and employment systems, and we'll invite Erkan to talk about the experiences. And just before he does his presentation, just a quick introduction. So Erkan has worked on the policies on elevation of poverty in the State Planning Organization in the Turkish Prime Ministry for 25 years. And he joined the Ministry of Family and Social Services in 2018 and 2021. And he's currently working in the ministry. He has worked as a social protection specialist at FAO previously in Turkey between 2019 and 2021. And he's specialized in areas of income distribution, poverty policies on combating poverty, implementation of SDGs targets for Turkey. And with this short introduction, I'll hand over to Erkan for you to share your Turkey experience.
Yeah, thank you, Wanza. It's a big pleasure to be here to share our experience with the colleagues, and I would like to thank all the colleagues from the DCI and the other organization to organize this meeting. Yeah, I will talk about the Turkish case. It's Turkish case is like as Agastya said, the social registry gateway. Next slide, please. It's a different case. When you look at these numbers, especially the main problem in our social protection system is that comes from the low level of employment participation, especially for women. As you see, women participation to employment is about just 36. This is another important issue is the net rate. It's about the 23 point. As a result, the poverty rate is about 13 or 14 percent in Turkey. Let's go to the next slide, please. Another issue, the big issue to solve for us to improve our social protection system. Our social protection has a dual character. In the one side, there is a social insurance and the health system. In the other side, the social assistance and services system. Ministry of Labor and the Social Security run the social insurance program and the employment programs. Especially they provide the services and the programs for the registered people registered in the social insurance program. What we do in the Ministry of Family, our target group is out of the social insurance system. That's why they have income insecurity and job insecurity. Let's go to the next slide, please. Yeah, in our ministry, we have two main programs for the social assistance. One is the increasing the resilience, the other is the exit strategy. Yeah, for the increasing resilience program, the cash transfer and referral services, what we provide to the poor people or the our beneficiaries. For the exit strategy, and as the today's subject, the job replacement and skill improvement. Yeah, let's go to the next slide. Yeah, in our system, there are three main groups, target groups for job replacement and skill improvement. One is for the especially housewives, as I said before. In Turkey, because of the low level of the employment, women participation to employment, that's why housewives is very important for us. As you see, most of them are have low level of education and they are out of the labor force and they have no or less qualification and blah blah. The second group is the generally the man, especially they are our beneficiaries in the social assistance system, but they couldn't find a job and they couldn't find the income. And the third one is the new program is run by the Turkish Employment Agency. There is a program for the people. It's called the Household Support System. Let's go to the next slide, please. Yeah. When we look at our beneficiaries' characteristic, we see that one third of the beneficiaries can work and can get income if we support that. So we have two main centers, the family support centers and the social solidarity centers. Family support centers for women and the social solidarity centers for the Roman people. As you see, from the 2011, we have provided services to about 207 million people, the beneficiaries in the family support centers, and about 300,000 people in the Sudan. Let's go to the next slide, please. And the other programs is the job replacement program. And for this program, the Turkish Ministry of Family and the Ministry of Labor work together. And there are several programs for the job seekers for our target group in the Turkish Employment Agency. And we provide some services to the job seekers in our system, for our beneficiaries. For example, one-time startup assistance for referral to work, and also we provide condition education and health assistance for at least 12 months after they find a job. And also we provide the other services. What we do by the job replacement program, we try to ensure to transform the social assistance beneficiaries who are able to work self-sufficient and productive, and also to ensure the sustainability of social assistance system by reducing and preventing aid dependency and turn it into a fairer system. Even though, despite of what we, even though what we have done so far, and when we look at the result, as I said, there are 5 million beneficiaries who can work in our system, social beneficiaries in our social assistance system. But we can register, we can provide them to get registered in the employment agency is just about the 10%. In just 11 or 14% of these 10% could find the job. Yeah, these are the very low level of the result, and we need to increase and strengthen the link between the employment system and the social assistance system. Let's go to the other slide, please. And that's why we work, Ministry of Family and Ministry of Labor work together, and they have created a new program, household support system, last year. So we especially we targeted, we identified different groups and who has capability to work and has also intent to work, intent to get the income in our system. That's why we work together, and our system, digital system, and the identification system work together. And let's go to the other slide, please. After that study, as you see, we, as a person, we have found about 600,000 people can work in our social assistance system. This project is about 5 or 6 years. So we have started last year, and we have already get just 10% of the person, is about 65,000 person got the job from the Turkish employment agency. So what we provide to these job seekers in our social assistance system to give the some intensive individual counseling, job placement, vocational training, on the job training, and etc. Let's go to the other slide. Yeah, these are the, by the way, our digital system, the Ministry of Family's digital system and the Ministry of Labor system can see each other, can work each other. But all the social and the civil registries are in the Ministry of Family's databases. All identifications are done in our system. Then we send these data to the Ministry of Labor, and they provide these services to the potential beneficiaries or job seekers. So I can give the other details when if there is a questions. Thank you, Wanza, for Turkish case.
Thank you, Ekan, for your presentation. And for more details about the Turkey case, we have a recording on our website that features the integration in Turkey. So you can always refer to that. So the next presentation, our last presenter today is Doville. She'll provide an input from the solution provider perspectives, having developed a system that manages public employment services Just before I invite Doville, just a quick introduction on her. She's an employment domain specialist at WCC, and she's responsible for transforming public employment services through technology that reflects real labor market needs. So in this role, Doville connects policy, data, and user experience to shape public employment systems software that is compliant, intuitive, and impactful by aligning product features with labor market trends and client workflows. So Doville helps drive adoption, trust, and long-term value for government agencies, job seekers, and employers. With this short introduction, over to you, Doville.
Thank you, Vanza. Hello, everyone. So I would like to quickly introduce our company and then our solution. So we are a private company specializing in employment with 25 years of experience serving workforces and public employment services around the world. If you go to the next slide, I would like to introduce our solution, which from the overview at the start of the session is actually residing under active labor market services part. We support active labor market policies, but not through enrollment and eligibility of the people, but actually as a next step supporting with activities, facilitating with necessary activities of people who are enrolled in certain programs. And then I will later explain at what points our solution is interoperable and especially how do we support the passive labor market services as well. So our solution is called Worknetics, and it is a software solution for job seekers, employers, and caseworkers. If you go to the next slide, we have a sort of an architecture, functional architecture, or an overview of our solution. So at the start of the session, we mentioned that there are certain parts of the public employment services, and we actually in one solution facilitate some of them, with the most important being the job matching service. So our solution is built on our proprietary matching technology, where we help job seekers find the most relevant vacancies and employers find the most relevant candidates. The middle layer, so the orange core capabilities and system management part are the backend services of the solution, which facilitate the configuration of the solution. And in this part, we can tailor our solution to support active labor market policies. So I will explain a little bit later how. But the most important one as a brain of our solution is the taxonomy manager, where there we already integrate with international standards such as ESCO and ONET, international occupation and skills standards, which are very important for the job matching and job seeker enrollment as well as employer enrollment in the system. And then we have the interface layer where we basically provide services to job seekers, employers, and caseworkers, as well as training providers, and facilitate communication between them in finding opportunities. If we go to the next slide, I would like to focus a little bit on the matching part as a crucial part for public employment services. So we deviate from just searching, which job boards mainly provide, such as LinkedIn job board, where you can search for any kind of job, but you will not it will not take into account what the vacancy actually requires and what the job seeker can offer. So if I want to be an astronaut, I will be able to find the jobs as astronaut. The next step, if you click next, is actually facilitating bidirectional matching. So we want to facilitate all the job seeker job search a bit more efficiently and propose them the relevant vacancies, which are relevant based on their profile, their work experience, their education. and also propose employers the relevant candidates based on what the job seeker offers in terms of skills. And as the next step, we then want to also support public employment services with active labor market policies. We want to facilitate them in our solution. So we do not look at the whole population unanimously in our solution, but we try to variate between the target groups, such as what Turkey mentioned before, what Erkan mentioned before, such as housewife, a woman, or youth. So if we go to the next slide, I will expand a little bit on that. So we try to facilitate, support active labor market policies in various scenarios. One of them is the strategic matching. So since we have a configurable matching algorithm, which is supported by responsible AI, so it is not machine learning, it is configurable, transparent, and explainable. We can configure different algorithms for different target groups to support them in finding the correct job. So these are just some of the examples. So for example, for career starters or youth, we could configure an algorithm which ignores work experience, where most likely they lack work experience in finding the suitable job, and increase the importance in the matching algorithm of education, since they most probably are recent graduates. We can also, of course, prioritize matching them with internships and apprenticeships as well. And for example, single parents, housewives, or moms, we can care about categories such as work hours, distance from home, flexibility of the vacancies more when matching them with suitable jobs. So with our solution, we just want to tailor a target group journey to sustainable employment. And next slide, how else we support public employment services with active labor market policies is with facilitating reskilling and upskilling. So our solution does facilitate skills training opportunities and guide especially the target groups towards upskilling to find a better job. So again, for example, for seniors, we could propose directly without even matching them to any jobs, trainings in which will help them to keep up with digital literacy, computer skills, or even try to transition them to sustainable industries from unsustainable ones like coal industries and so on. So we try to facilitate a couple of the things in our solution to support the active services of the labor market. Now I'd like to present a couple use cases quickly. The first one being Malaysia use case. So our solution is deployed in Malaysia. It is called My Future Jobs, but it is exactly the same solution as I just presented. So we there facilitate job matching, skills profiling, and trainings as well. And we already spoke a little bit about how we could integrate user registration through civil registration and checking users against the ID system, for example. In Malaysia, actually, that is not necessary, at least not for now. We facilitate the user registration for our solution. However, in a lot of European countries, we see different use cases where registration through government IDs or banks is necessary. So as a solution provider, we make sure that we provide APIs to facilitate those type of integrations already at the registration of users. Perkeso also is an agency which has different systems under the same roof. So they have My Future Jobs, which is basically the job search, the job match solution, but also they have a solution for employment interest system and other labor market programs under the same roof. So if you go to the next slide, the employment insurance system is one of the labor market systems for insured persons, where insured persons can apply for such a labor market program, and then they will be required to actually register to My Future Jobs and search for jobs. So that is a mandatory requirement. So what we do with our solution to support that passive services of the labor market is to actually log every activity that the insured persons perform in our solution. So the most important, of course, is that they are required to search for jobs to keep receiving the benefits. So we basically log those services, and we facilitate with our data, which is logged in our system, casework. We facilitate case decision making of the caseworkers. Next to that, we also have an integrated case management system. So if there are job seekers who, for example, are a bit less active, the case management manager is able to create a case, and within the case, they are able to create an employment commitment plan where they can define what, for example, the job seeker has to do to not be sanctioned on the benefits. So you see a little bit on the screenshot at the top, the ECP progress tracking. So it will alert you when the job seeker has not, for example, searched for a job within a month, the sufficient amount of time. With integrated case management and data tracking, especially for the benefit system, we try to help Perkeso track the relevant data necessary for the insurance system. And for our interoperability, which is very important, is that all the necessary data is actually exported and directly sent to the labor market information system, which is a consolidated labor market information system of the whole labor market data, and we are just one source of that. And the next use case will be a use case from the United system. If you click next. So in United system, we actually are proposing a Workforce Next solution. So it is a little bit different use case than Malaysia, where case management is a separate system. But actually, states are moving towards more and more towards the area where they want labor exchange, the solution which facilitates job search and job seeker employee interactions, to be integrated with a case management solution, which facilitates the labor workforce program eligibility determination, enrollment in services, and especially most important, the federal reporting. But why we create one solution is because states really want those two solutions to be tightly integrated and even have the same look and feel. So in most cases, there are providers who provide both solutions. In our case, we are partnering with a partner called Sagitech, and we try to make sure that the look and feel is really the same. And we have bidirectional APIs for both of these systems, where we send data from our system to Sagitech system, where they make sure that the federal reporting is correct, which is the most important part, because states funding federal reporting is responsible for the funding of the states, so it really needs to be correct. And another use case of interoperability, which is in most states is required, is interoperability with unemployment insurance system, where our solution has to again send the job search activity of the job seekers to make sure that they are able to receive the benefits. And of course, there are other interoperabilities of the system, but these are just some of the examples of how interoperable our solution needs to be. So thank you for the invitation and for listening. If you have any questions.
Thank you to Will for the presentation and for highlighting the different use cases your system is enabling. And just before we move to the questions we have in the Q&A sessions, I'd like to invite Aisha. In both presentations, in the demonstrations and the Will presentation, we talked about how standards enable the interoperability. And Aisha will just briefly highlight some of the standards that can enable this data exchange between these two systems. And with that, I'll quickly share my screen. Aisha, over to you.
Okay, so I'll go briefly. So on this slide, you can see a sample of how we defined our data schema around interoperability between SP system and employment service system. You see here we have a member data object, which represents the job seeker or the beneficiary that is shared between SP system and employment service system and vice versa. An example of the fields that this object can contain, we have the unique identifier. As a data object, we have the demographic info, which is an object that can contain the personal information, such as the name, the address, the phone number. We also have some codable concepts like employment status. Can you click through, please? So we use codable concepts for elements like marital status, employment status, occupation, and education level. These maps to what DCI calls code directories, which are standard list of codes and values that everyone can share and understand the meaning of. So you see here we have codes, we have values. This way, whenever the two systems will share a code, they will understand the value of this code. Can you go next, please? Next, we look at our search API. This is a post request to search endpoint. We always recommend to use authentication via bearer token, JWT token, which aligns with secure interoperability design. On the request side, we see we are passing a query, like, for example, get me all unemployed beneficiaries that are work capable, or get me one member by their unique identifier. Can you click through, please? On the response side, we are returning a structured message object that includes the array of the members that match the search query criteria that we send. You see in the response, we have the person identifier, their full name, and key socioeconomic attributes like their employment status, occupation, and education level. In the same request, you can specify as well what attributes you want to get. So now you can notice that those fields we see here in the response ties exactly to our data scheme we defined earlier, which means any system that uses the same data standards or maps to them can understand the response in the same way. Can you go next, please? Now our last endpoint here we have, you see we are calling a referrer API. This is also a post request and also using JWT-based authorization. In the request, we are including the member object, which we saw as well in the data schema. This is the referrer that we saw in the demo as well. This endpoint can be from employment service systems to an SP system or vice versa. As you see here in the response from the systems, we return an acknowledgement message that the referrer was received. So those are all standards we define in DCI, and then they are up to review by our DCI committee members. And back to you, Wodsak.
Thank you, Aisha. We can have the main screen, the main presentation, so you can continue the presentation. And as that comes up, all the standards that we've developed, we have, they're available on Gitbook and GitHub, so everyone can access them and review them and also use them in your projects free of charge. So now back to a discussion session, we have a number of questions in the Q&A. Some of them have been answered. So I'll just focus on the ones that have not been answered. And I think the first question we have is on the use cases that were presented, just highlighting which use cases require advanced level of integration. For example, moving beyond the simple referrals we've just seen, but require real-time bidirectional case management and synchronizations, and demands the greatest institutional budget. And together with that, I'll link that question to the second one, which is about which are the simplest use cases to implement, which have low barriers for entry. And for this combined question, I'll invite Anita to share some insights, briefly share some insights.
Sorry, Wodsak.
So there are two questions on use cases that Martina presented. So I wanted, if you have some insights on that, then we can hand over to Martina too for her input. Which use cases are easier to implement and which ones require a lot of effort to implement?
And I think, generically speaking, it is any use case in terms of implementing interoperability depends on the country context, where they have a state of readiness of the databases, policies, procedures, and so anything can be implemented if all these are in place. And I think Thomas also responded to one question in the chat from Yemen as to what is needed for implementing interoperability. So to me, it's nothing is difficult if you have the will and the desire. Otherwise, it could be simple use case also could be difficult. So with this, I hand over back to you, Anza, or you want to invite somebody else.
Thanks, Anita. I'll also ask the same question to Martina based on your research. Martina, which use cases did you find easy that countries can easily implement, and which ones require a high level of coordination?
Okay,
Martina.
thanks, Vansa. I can only agree with Anita that it depends very much on the country case. So it depends on the overall social protection landscape and also the employment programs and institutions in place. For the first question, I would like to distinguish between social insurance and social assistance. So in the case of social insurance, I think what we have seen for decades now is compliance management. This has been done for a long time where unemployment insurance systems are in place, also to make sure that these schemes are financially sustainable in the long run and to incentivize recipients to get back into employment. And interoperability is basically here underpinning a basic function of the system that is often integrated in the design of these schemes. So this is wherever you have these compliance management with unemployment insurance, you also see some kind of systems interoperability. It's not always real time, but at least batch transfers or whatsoever are done on a very regular basis. And also, this is also something where you see that the management of unemployment insurance is even sometimes placed within or integrated within an employment information system. The case of Perkeso in Malaysia was mentioned before. Another case here would be Korea Employment 24 that was also presented in the last webinar in October, the Talking Interoperability webinar. In the case of social assistance, I would say that I don't know if easy, but one of the things that are currently being seen is to support beneficiaries to find employment and also vice versa. So to have these referral systems in place to help job seekers to access social protection or to help social protection beneficiaries to access employment services. There is an increased interest from both sides in collaboration, and there are also mutual benefits that have been discussed various times over the webinar, I would say. And this is often starting with a very simple referrals and then could be extended to more sophisticated approaches supported also by digital interoperability. So that's for the first question. The second one, yeah, I think for what is hardest to be done, I would say it's the mutual referral part, right? So let's say the things that need most budgetary and institutional commitment is if there is a real two-way referral between social protection and employment systems. From the country cases that I have seen, it's usually that you need an overall legal framework that is asking for a strong cooperation between the two policy fields, also at the operational level. You need some joint policies and strategies across both policy fields, how to operationalize these. There need to be aligned referral pathways, so you really need to think into how let's say the recipient or the client is going from one way to another. You often see co-location of services in the form of one-stop shops, and then this is often being underpinned then by joint digital referral and case management systems. And these case management systems are then often being connected with the existing social protection and employment service information systems, also for a two-way data exchange, ideally. In some cases, you even see integrated programs. I think this is something that Auguste also presented. So you even have this kind of programmatic integration where the two policy fields and the respective stakeholders work very closely together. And I think one key message that I also learned from this webinar is also that this is non-linear, right? So it's a kind of a toolbox, and you really have to decide on the integration pathways based on the country context and what is there in terms of registries, in terms of institutional capacities, but also in terms of staff capacities to see what is working well. That's from my side for these two questions. I think I'll leave it here because we don't have that much time anymore. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Martina, for your answer. Yes, we don't have so much time left, but I would like to ask the next two questions we have to Agustia, also linking to what Martina you've just said on the decision making for the integration pathways and model. So you mentioned countries need to look at some factors like digital system maturity and institutional coordination. So in your experience, which of these determining factors is frequently observed bottleneck? And the DCI standards that are being developed, how can countries implement this to address some of these bottlenecks? Just briefly, because just if you can answer in 1.5 minutes.
Sure, Vanza. No, thank you. Thank you for those questions. I think, yes, not to, repeat too much of what Martina and Anita said already, but I think the most important, I guess, factor or challenge as well for integration is like the institutional coordination mechanisms, because you do need a clear understanding of, who is responsible for what aspects, how is data going to be shared, how is data going to be collected, and so on. So, the example of the social registry, linking with employment systems I was mentioning earlier, the social registry will have, a certain set of household information, the PMT, or a poverty score. And then is this information, relevant or useful for the public employment services to make a decision on, who to prioritize, who to support, how they can, who to target, so to speak. And is there additional data that needs to be collected? So there's a lot of things to be figured out. And you see countries which have successfully done it, like again the UK, Chile, Korea, and so on, where because they have got very good institutional coordination in place, they've got full-fledged one-stop shop models. But in countries with lower, I guess lower digital maturity, or more complexity in institutional coordination, that's where I guess the DCI standards also come in, where it does provide clarity or a framework to look at the processes, the data requirements, as well as the technology aspects. So that is something which definitely does benefit countries in thinking about integration, where you actually have something like the standards to look at and say, okay, how can we customize this for our constraint or our context. So I'll stop there, but yeah, thank you for these questions.
Thank you, Agustia. So we only have 2 minutes left, and I would like to ask one question that has already been answered by Thomas, but I would like to hear from cultural perspectives. So just in 1 minute, the question from Emon, what are the protocol, the institutional structures, etc., that are necessary to maintain interoperability as different organizations plan and implement their strategic IT solutions? So I'll give Ivusala 1 minute to respond to this in the case of Azerbaijan, then 1 minute to Eckhard also to share what has enabled interoperability in your different contexts. Just 1 minute each, please. You're on mute, Vosala. Please unmute yourself.
Oh, sorry. Thank you. I extend my warm greetings to everyone. It's a great pleasure for me to join you today. In response to your question, I can confirm that integrations between state institutions are regulated by legislation. The Minister of Digital Development and Transport of the Republic of Azerbaijan is the institution responsible for ensuring integration across all state bodies. They facilitate with integration through the digital bridge system, which enables seamless data exchange between various government institutions. The normative documents also establish clear rules for data storage, transfer, and protection. Moreover, the type of transmitted data is defined by legislation also. For example, during the proactive processing pension applications, data such as persons, deaths, family members' information, and other personal information may be need to be obtained from another institution. In such cases, the request for this information must be legally justified. Additionally, the security of integrated data is guaranteed. Each user is accountable for safeguarding the confidentiality of information in accordance with the law on personal data.
Thank you, Vosala. And Ekan, would you like to come in for 1 minute?
Thank you, Wanza. When we started to create an integrated social assistance system, we start with created a legal framework for data protection and data transfer. The second, we defined which indicators we use and which ministries or governmental bodies or the private sectors has such indicators. Then, after we defined all the indicators, we assigned the protocol with the private institutions like banks and also governmental bodies. And after that, the different institutions use the different programs for databases. So after signed protocol with the institutions, we created some interfaces to share the data among between the institutions. So now we have databases from the 29 institutions and from the 120 databases in our system. We have created such a big integrated databases, and by using these databases, we can easily create a civil registry and the social registry for any beneficiaries or applicants. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ekan. And with that, I think we don't have any more time left. I'll just quickly share our next step. If you could please share the presentation. Just quick announcements. Next slide, please. Next slide. So like Anita mentioned, the standards committee working on the standards for these two systems, interoperability, will kick off on Thursday 20th, and we'll keep you posted on the progress of the development. Then the next Then, like Anita mentioned, we also provide implementation support and technical support through our help desk. So if anyone needs support regarding the implementation of these standards, you can visit our website and get details regarding on how DCI can support you to adopt the standards. And then we have a paper that was developed on what are the best practices for developing and implementing these interoperability standards. It's available on our website. You can download it, and we have a quick survey on the paper. So once you review it, we are happy to hear your opinions on this, and you can use the feedback form to give the feedback back to us. And the last announcement will soon be launching. The official launch of the AI Hub for social protection will be on December 2nd, 2025. The links are available on our website for registration if you'd like to attend this event. And you can also get more information on the AI Hub on our website. And with this, I'd like to thank you all for joining the presentation. If you'd like to know more about DCI, you can visit our website, and we have our contact email there. And you can also visit us on LinkedIn, Gitbook, and GitHub. Thank you, everyone, and have a nice afternoon, morning.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank
Okay,
you.
bye-bye.
Bye bye.